Hello there.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of Jedi Knights. I'm your moderator, Christian Buckley. Joining me once again is Mike Connors.
Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you back.
Yeah, no, this is great. Every week I look forward to this.
Yeah, me too. It's a highlight of my week for sure.
Yeah, definitely. It gives me an excuse to watch a Star Wars movie every week.
Yeah,
so.
it's a nice feeling.
Yeah, totally.
It's a ritual at this point.
It really is.
Joining us once again, his ritual is watching the movie mere hours before we actually record the show.
Yeah, I'm kind of lazy about it.
Pat Maroney on the mixer. How you doing?
Good to be back.
Nice.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. Thank you for devoting your time.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. So this week there's a lot of ground to cover.
A lot of news?
Yes, we don't have many stories, but we have meaty stories.
Oh, a lot of flesh on the bone, as they
Yeah.
say.
It's a big fat Renaissance fair turkey leg
Yeah.
that we're gonna just chomp into.
What is it, like venison, really, though?
I thought it was there's a bone in it.
Well, okay, whatever.
it's too big of a meat. I think we can all agree
Is
on
it
that.
not turkey?
I don't know.
I
What it
know.
is.
Yeah, it is turkey, but isn't it supposed to be? All right, whatever.
It looks like a club of meat, but we're spewing.
Like it's turkey now, but what did they eat before? That's what I'm saying.
So are you telling me that in canon
Yeah,
it's not turkey?
I think in canon, yeah, it's not turkey.
Well, let me tell you, listeners of this fine show, if you are brand new to this here program, every week we open the show with a little game called Fire the Cannon, where I compile some information about a piece of Star Wars media content that either did exist, was going to exist, or hasn't really been in the limelight for a while.
Yeah.
Condense it to a tweet-sized recap, pitch it to you guys, we see if it's worth firing this cannon, casting it out into the void of space, or make it canon and join the new legacy of Star Wars content.
Yeah.
This week, it's Battlefront 3.
Okay.
And not what you think. Battlefront 3 was in development by Free Radical before it was canceled in 2008. The game was very close to completion and is in a somewhat playable state at this point. I think there's a leaked alpha out there. The game's strongest selling point was large-scale, seamless transitions between land and space battles. The game featured a cinematic story, which starred Nolan North. Obviously, we've seen the reboot of the Battlefront series adapt some of these things, not to a full extent.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the recap. Battlefront 3, are you familiar with the original Battlefront?
Oh yeah, I played a lot of Battlefront 1 and 2.
I played way more 2.
Yeah.
One of my favorite games on the PS2.
I think 2 is just better.
2 is better.
Yeah.
For sure.
There are more heroes, right?
Yeah, you could play Mos Eisley and just be like run around Darth Maul and Yoda. I love
Yeah.
that map. Battlefront 3 was interesting because after Revenge of the Sith, I kind of thought Star Wars was done.
Yeah.
Battlefront, though, was a way that game or that name lived on. And I looked to video games for more Star Wars stuff at the time, like Force Unleashed, for example. Battlefront 3 was one that I always thought was going to happen.
Me too. I think Battlefront 2 came out in like 2005, right?
It did. It came out alongside Revenge of the Sith.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So that's why I associate the two in my head, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, when you read that tweet size bit right there, Battlefront 3, how completed was it?
It was very close to completion.
Yeah, but like I guess what I'm wondering is like, was like the story completed? Like
So,
the campaign mode of this game?
There are cinematics out there. They look a little rough.
Yeah.
But this was a early-ish generation PS3 360 game.
Okay.
I'm not sure exactly what happened with Free Radical. The game was canceled. I'm sure Free Radical does not exist anymore. But Battlefront 3, I remember seeing some of this leaked footage. There's an alpha that exists. So whatever in your head you're picturing a video game alpha being probably looks like that.
Yeah.
There's probably a few bugs happening. But you could see a stormtrooper walk, shoot somebody, hop in a spaceship, fly up into space.
That's awesome.
That's what I wanted out of these new Battlefront games,
Yeah.
and we have still not gotten that.
Well, we have something kind of similar. I think it's called Capital Supremacy or whatever.
I'm a big fan of that mode.
Yeah, that mode's really cool.
Is that the one where you go from like a land battle to a space battle and then kind of back and forth?
It's not really a space
Kind of,
battle.
yeah.
It's more of like an atmospheric battle.
Right.
Okay.
But
I bought Battlefront 2 earlier this year on sale, and I think about maybe a month or two after I did that, they added Capital Supremacy.
yeah, they also added like Geonosis too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time I played Capital Supremacy, that game lasted at least like almost an hour.
Yeah, no, those are long. I played like an hour and a half game of Capital Supremacy.
So that got close to capturing this magic.
Yeah.
the selling point that I was attached to with Battlefront 3 was that like you see a TIE fighter on the ground and you can get into it and then you can just fly away,
That's so cool.
which is still what I would like to see.
Yeah.
So
So
like it's the tokens that you have to run over.
yeah, exactly. Those are kind of dumb. So what I'm pitching to you guys, I guess, Star Wars Battlefront 3. Let's say some company some company could probably do this. Buy what exists of this game, finish it off. Let's say that this whole EA deal is not contractually negating this from actually existing. Do you think, like, would you guys welcome a return to a classic Battlefront for an installment, or would you like to just see the more boots on the ground, dice, visceral kind of approach to Battlefront?
In a way, I feel as if we got Battlefront 3, but just in the form of Battlefront 2 by DICE.
Okay.
Like, that has its own, like, cinematic story. You can say what you want about it, like, whether you like it or not. I personally enjoyed it.
I haven't played it yet.
You haven't played it?
No.
Have you played it at all, Pat?
I have. I played the story, which
Yeah.
was sick.
Did you like it?
I did enjoy it a lot. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Okay, so
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I think that aspect of Battlefront 3 has already like lived on in its own way,
Mm-hmm.
and the multiplayer aspect of the old Battlefront games has just evolved into what it is now. I think Battlefront 2. I really like Battlefront 2.
Me too.
So
I like it a lot. I've had a lot of fun with the multiplayer.
yeah,
So, my dream scenario, I think the most realistic way we could get this thing to happen is similar to the Bayonetta series. Nintendo realizes that there's something that's wrong in the games industry.
Yeah.
Something that deserves to exist doesn't exist, like Battlefront 3. They front the cash, they finish the game, exclusive to our thing, because there's no way in hell any Nintendo system. I love them. I love Nintendo, but there's no way the Switch could run either of these new Battlefront games. They did recently re-release Jedi Outcast
yeah, they did
on Switch as well as other consoles.
Mm-hmm.
So, in my hypothetical, I'm imagining Nintendo comes in, hey, we get Battlefront 3, guys.
They could definitely run Battlefront 3 on the Nintendo Switch.
Exactly.
That's for sure. I think it's indicative of a larger problem with old Star Wars games, like the Darth Maul game that was canceled, for
Mhm.
instance, and like Star Wars 1313.
Yeah.
Like, I always wanted to see those games too.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're gonna do it for Battlefront 3, we should do it for all of them.
Okay.
Let's get it going.
So we just want to put a stamp down that every single canceled Star Wars game comes back.
Yes, because especially the Darth Maul one, because that one looked dope.
Sure.
I think that's doable. That's the only way you can really sell. Because what I was gonna say was you take Battlefront 3 and you like sort of use it as a promo for another game that's coming out. Like I don't know if you guys ever played like Doritos Crash Course.
I'm familiar with this.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
that was just a dumb game that was free, and me and my friends played it for nights. Like if someone released a very old version of Battlefront for free on a modern console, I feel like it'd be sick.
Yeah. So we have a first to fire the cannon. I wrote this down and underlined it twice.
Okay.
All in.
Yeah, we're all in.
All in on Star
Oh yeah,
Wars games.
1000%. It sounds
So-
sick.
Yeah.
That's going to do it for Fire the Cannon this week. I'm happy that we were this positive about an old Star Wars game.
Yeah, Battlefront 3 and more.
Yeah.
Like when I say all in, I mean all in.
Pod
Sure.
Racers 2.
Sure.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
Not actually though.
You know what is happening, though, very, very, very soon?
What?
The Mandalorian is premiering.
Oh, that's in like
That's
days.
That's from the recording of this.
Yeah, so by the time that you're watching or listening to this episode, The Mandalorian is 4 days out.
Or may even be out already.
Yeah, if you're listening later, it might already be out.
Yeah.
But I cannot wait. I'm very excited.
Yeah, it's imminent.
Last week, at the time of recording, we were anticipating a new trailer to drop.
Mm-hmm.
Did you watch this trailer?
I did watch this trailer.
You like it?
Not as much as the first one.
Okay.
I'm gonna say that.
There was a lot of crossover.
Yeah, it was basically the same shots, but just like, I don't know, presented in a different way.
I'll say that I'm still really sold on the fight choreography, the visual aspect of it, the art direction.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're knocking it out of the park on those fronts.
Yeah.
Knocking it out of the park. I'm very excited. I would love to see more of this era of Star Wars. I think it's really cool that we're seeing remnants of the Empire. Like there's that moment where he walks into that meeting room or something and it's full of stormtroopers. But like, are they really stormtroopers?
Yeah,
Are they just people wearing stormtrooper armor?
It may very well be because this takes place after Return of the Jedi, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested to see the remnants of the Empire.
Do you think this show is going to explain like the origin of the First Order at all?
I don't think so. I feel like the First Order is, if you want to like get really nitty gritty about the distance between 6 in the First Order and 7 in the First Order, I think First Order is closer to 7, as far as we know.
Yeah, as far as we know, we don't know if did Kylo Ren start the First Order? Do we like know that for sure?
I'm sure there's a book.
There's got to be some sort of like definitive answer.
It's probably going to be in that comic book.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah.
Possible.
So, but yeah, Mandalorian final trailer. Not too much to say on it. Like you said, I thought it was very cool. Like it's cool. It's more of
it's
it.
cool. It just doesn't matter to me anymore.
Yeah, you're already in.
I'm already in, like, and it's just so close that, yeah, if a trailer dropped, like, tomorrow, like, I don't even know if I would watch it, to be honest with you.
Okay, yeah.
Just because I'm so close. It's like, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Well, Pat, you're still excited for Mandalorian?
Yeah. I feel like I agree with what Mike said. You have to kind of have like a distance between the release date
Yeah.
for a trailer to have like a oomph to it.
Yeah, because you really don't want to do too much too fast with any kind of marketing or any kind of branding, I guess, of popular media.
And I mean, it's not a bad comment on, this trailer, but it also just had like similar shots to the other ones. So it's not like it really was anything new. This is great. It was a good trailer.
And also it came like what, a week after the last
The episode 9 trailer.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So like,
So speaking of too much too soon,
Yeah. Okay.
you are killing the transitions today.
Every time you say a transition, Christian, I have no idea where it's going.
okay.
So I'm just like,
I like
yep.
it. I like it.
Okay,
like it.
cool.
Bob Iger did another interview recently.
Okay.
A matter of days ago, actually. He was doing an interview with a radio show talking about his new book, again, promoting this Bob Iger memoir of his time as Disney CEO so far.
The New Testament.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Let's call it that. So a quote from his interview actually is in regard to Star Wars and the way that Disney and Lucasfilm are kind of shifting their approach to making Star Wars content. I have said publicly that I think we made and released too many Star Wars films over a short period of time. I have not said that they were disappointing in any way. I've not said that I'm disappointed in their performance. I just think that there's something special about a Star Wars film, and less is more.
It took you like 6 years to figure that one out.
Yeah, like duh,
Yeah.
I know a lot of us were sort of had this mindset at the onset of this whole deal. Many people were worried that Star Wars would become too much of a assembly line sort of process. The MCU formula exists.
Yeah, MCU. I mean, they push out like 2 to 3 MCU movies a year.
It's 3 now. Yeah.
Yeah.
3 is the standard.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't think it's possible because Star Wars has that like emotional relevance to like every movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could just, you could just pick like a superhero and make a movie about them.
Yeah.
And like Ant-Man is just kind of like a summer movie.
Sure.
And make money off of it.
I think with the MCU, I don't think that the MCU formula is a negative thing.
No.
Because it does work. It's entertaining. It's fun. Those movies still hit emotionally, for me at least. And I think it's just two very separate beasts because you're taking Marvel, for instance, which has this history in comics serial storytelling, and then kind of blowing that up on a larger scale, still maintaining the way these characters interact with each other, the way they exist in this world.
Yeah.
So technically we're getting like 3 issues of a Marvel MCU comic film per year. But Star Wars, like you're saying, and how many of us view it, it's very... I don't want to say poetic. It's very like...
It's poetry. It rhymes.
Yeah. It has this presence to it. It has a gravitas.
It does. Yeah, that's what I mean. I didn't
Yeah.
mean to knock like the MCU.
Yeah, I think...
I think that formula works for the kind of movies.
Right,
that
they're
those
two
are.
separate beasts.
Yeah, but I'm just saying like Star Wars movies. That's always how it's been. It's just been movies coming out like at once every 3 years.
Mhm.
And like, all right, that's enough.
Yeah, like could you imagine if for this set of films we didn't get like 7, 8, 9, we didn't get them until like 3 years apart? Can you imagine what that would have been like?
I mean, the movies would probably be better.
They probably would. But that's just not how anything works anymore,
No, yeah, it's just not how it works. But
I've had this thought process since I was a kid. I feel like I might have said this on the show before, but I used to like thank my lucky stars that I wasn't alive in the 70s and I had to wait that time between
Yeah.
Empire Strikes Back and Star Wars Episode 6. I'm bad at remembering the names. But like, I don't think I can do that. Like, I'm struggling now.
Yeah,
like a year-long wait.
Yeah, think about Avengers, Infinity War, pretty big cliffhanger.
Yeah, huge cliffhanger.
You kind of know what's gonna happen, but like huge cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Endgame was a year later. That was still all that wait. Pat, you can speak to that.
Yeah,
that was a long.
I was
wait.
going bananas the entire time.
It still felt like an eternity for sure.
So think about the end of Force Awakens.
Yeah.
How that movie ends. Having to wait 3 years.
Well, I mean, you had to wait 2.
Yeah, but like
which
an extra
is
year.
quite a long time.
Yeah,
but yes, an extra year would be ridiculous.
Yeah,
I think that this is that they're going in the right direction. Disney's going in the right direction.
Me too. Kind of crossing over with this, I guess, is the turkey leg news story that I mentioned earlier. Benioff and Weiss have exited Star Wars.
Yeah.
And there's a lot to cover here.
Okay.
And I think a lot of it sort of is putting into practice the mindset that Bob Iger was talking about. I pulled a lot of this from Variety. There's a huge article detailing sort of the mindset of Benioff and Weiss, the pressures facing Lucasfilm at the moment. It's written by Justin Kroll and Brent Lang, so recommend reading the whole thing. I pulled a few excerpts. First off, as far as what their story was going to be about, have you looked into this at all yet?
Yes, okay. I have.
So Benioff and Weiss had ambitious plans to take the Star Wars universe in a new direction. The period the pair were interested in exploring was how the Jedi came to exist. However, Lucasfilm executives and the creators begin to see their visions for the films diverge during meetings last summer. So, first off, what do we think of where they were going to go with this?
That was like the Old Republic, right?
I don't think so, because the Old Republic, as far as I know, is still relatively not in the middle between the beginning of the Jedi and where we pick up. But the Jedi Order, like, has a history at that point.
So what you're saying is the origins of the Jedi.
Yes,
like even further beyond
the Old Testament, if you will.
Oh wow.
So like, there was what's the beginning of the Bible?
Genesis.
No, like the first line. I don't know what it is.
Oh, I don't know.
Page
My name's
1.
Christian. I should know this.
Yeah.
But like
In the beginning, Bob Iger.
Yeah.
Yeah.
However, the Jedi started. I know there's like a sister, a brother, a tree, something like
Yeah.
that.
So, there's a tree somewhere. Yeah. No.
You think when they wrote that, they didn't realize that they were going to have to elaborate on a later day?
Honestly, maybe. So, as you can tell by the way I'm talking about this, I don't think that's an interesting story to diverge into.
It doesn't seem very interesting to me.
Divulge. Yeah, it's like kind of boring, you know?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
It's like my biggest issue with fleshing out Star Wars content is taking all of the mystery away.
Mm-hmm.
If you show the beginning of this whole thing, that kind of just like,
Yeah, I mean, like,
if it's a weird precedent on everything that comes after.
we don't necessarily like need to know how this all started.
I honestly don't care.
Yeah, like I don't really care either. I know that there in Legends there's a lot of backstory to it, and I've listened to it, and it's just kind of just right over the head.
It rambles on, yeah.
It rambles on, and it's kind of just like, okay, cool. Like I guess the point is the Jedi and the Sith are two different things.
Yeah, one good,
Like,
one bad.
I feel like it's perfectly explained in the title "A Long Time Ago in a Galaxy Far, Far Away."
Yeah,
'Cause you're just like,
exactly,
yeah. Back then.
Yeah,
Like,
and see, something that I love so much about Star Wars is, this is a very basic compliment, but like a long time ago in a galaxy far, far, a long time ago, but it's like very futuristic.
Yeah.
I love that about it.
It's that I've always thought that was the perfect scene setter.
Yeah.
Because it says everything without saying anything at all.
Yeah,
You're just
'cause-
like, okay, yeah, this is all realistic and reasonable.
Yeah,
Like,
so if we go even further back, I feel like that's just kind of dumb. If it's like going back to like,
a longer time ago.
yeah, an even
Yeah.
longer time ago, I guess.
and I don't think they'd say that at the top of it, but like, if that feeling they'd be evoking of like, here's how it all started. It's like, no, do something else.
Yeah.
I can continue this quote unless you have anything else to say about what their story was going to be.
I mean, you could continue the quote.
Okay. Netflix was aware that the duo had a commitment to
Yep.
Star Wars, but insiders on this whole thing say that they were also thinking that Benioff and Weiss were going to be spending up to 4 years on Star Wars.
I mean, I'm sure they would be, since they would be creating a trilogy.
Right. So in this report, I never saw anything about a trilogy.
Oh, really?
I think it might have been assumed. I think in the contract it might have
assumed.
said that they are signed on for at least 3 films, maybe.
I was kind of operating under the assumption that it was a trilogy. I think most people, it might have just been an assumption on the part of a lot of people
And that's fair,
talking about it.
because look at Game of Thrones, look at how long that lasted.
Yeah.
Like that's a story they tell over a long period of time.
And Ryan Johnson was confirmed signed on for a trilogy.
Yeah.
Right?
Mhm.
So it's not unreasonable to think they were as well.
So this is where it gets a little juicy.
Okay.
If you want to get some little drama going.
All right. Yeah.
This is not part of this Variety recap,
Okay.
but I thought it was interesting. Apparently, according to some insiders, she kind of said like her initial reporting was misinterpreted, so I didn't want to credit her because she didn't stand by what she said.
Are you talking about the Variety reporter?
No. This was somebody who runs a podcast for Game of Thrones or something.
Okay. All right.
So she said something that was interpreted on Reddit as Benioff and Weiss were fired in May, almost immediately following the Game of Thrones finale.
Yeah.
Soft fired is the way she phrased it.
Uh-huh.
Again, she said this is not proper reporting. This wasn't the way she meant it to be interpreted. But I think it's a conversation worth having because a lot of people assumed after that finale, they were going to be like, okay, so Disney, how are you going to react to this?
You know, it's funny because I was listening to a podcast. They're called the Black Series Rebels.
Mhm.
So shout out, I guess. They don't have a very big following.
Right.
Anyways, they talk about Star Wars news every week as well. And they're like industry insiders in a way.
That's
like
cool.
they work in Hollywood essentially.
I love hearing that talk.
Yeah. So like they know people, and they actually successfully announced the date of the Rise of Skywalker trailer before anybody else.
Nice.
So
Good call.
yeah, that was a good call.
Yeah.
I guess it was on out of one of their sources. So I don't know how credible these guys are, but whatever. They said that one of their friends who works in the industry overheard that like Benioff and Weiss, like that Netflix basically came at them with a counteroffer and were like, "Hey, so Disney's got this streaming service going on, and that's like a threat to our streaming service.
Yeah.
So we're gonna offer you like a bunch more money than
Right.
you could even ever imagine."
Because when that deal became public about the Netflix deal,
Yeah.
they were still, as far as the public news, signed on to do the Star Wars project.
Right. Yeah.
So them being soft fired around May makes sense, I guess, to give them time to work on their new project, and then when the time came, be like, hey, so it didn't work out, not going to work on Star Wars anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's just what I heard.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure of the credibility or the validity of that,
Mhm.
but it does make sense in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
Do you guys also feel like with a project like Star Wars, like it's such a big name in entertainment that I kind of feel like it deserves like sole focus? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I feel like them going between Star Wars and just a Netflix show, it doesn't seem right.
Yeah, definitely. And Netflix was aware of that because they did see that it was going to take a long time if they were attached to Star Wars.
Yeah.
That was pretty much the summary of the Benioff and Weiss aspect of this whole thing. You watched Game of Thrones, right?
Oh yeah.
You didn't like that finale, did you?
I did not like that finale.
All right.
No.
Why did a dragon destroy a throne? It makes no sense.
Yes, you didn't like it either. I know you're
trash.
I know you watched Game of Thrones.
I'm always wondering how much of that is Benioff and Weiss and how much of that is George R. R. Martin.
Well, you could put it on him, I guess, because he didn't write the book. You know, the book was still gone.
Yeah.
He approved whatever happened, but I'm sure he didn't really care.
Well, I just don't know. I mean, like we just don't know how the books end.
Yeah.
So it's possible. Like, what if they ended the same way? And what if George R. R. Martin's like, this is how? And I don't want to turn this into the Game of Thrones podcast.
Well,
but
it's interesting you say that as far as creative freedoms go,
yeah.
because that's also sort of what Variety touches on further into the article. And in terms of like the future direction for Lucasfilm right now, obviously in this new era of Star Wars films, we've had some ups and downs behind the scenes.
Oh yeah.
So the notable ones being Rogue One, Gareth Edwards kind of got replaced. He was still credited because he was a team player.
Yeah.
But Tony Gilroy kind of made that movie his own.
Yeah.
Same thing with Solo. Ron Howard stepped in for Lord and Miller. Pretty much redid the entire thing.
Rogue One still says directed by Gareth Edwards.
I know, yeah.
So that's a W in his column for sure.
Yeah, because Variety does touch on this, that the pitch to creatives is that from Lucasfilm that you will have creative freedom, but as evidence of everything we've seen so far, if it bends too far or if it's balanced too unevenly in the creatives side of things, they have no problem replacing you. And if you want to fight that, you won't get credited.
Yeah, and that's shown by Gareth Edwards getting credited, and who was behind Solo?
Lord and Miller, I think,
Yeah.
were still attached as producers.
Yeah, but it's not.
But like
You don't get that direct.
Steven Spielberg, look at his producer list on IMDb to tell you how much producer credit actually means.
Yeah.
So in terms of what's left for Star Wars, the Variety report did say that the Rian Johnson trilogy is still in production. They don't know the extent of production at the moment. Knives Out is coming out very soon.
I know he wanted to make a Knives Out too before
Oh,
he
really?
did any Star Wars stuff.
That's cool.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that movie.
I mean, I haven't seen anything about Knives Out.
Have you seen any of his other stuff?
I've seen Looper.
Okay. Knives Out.
I like Looper a lot.
Yeah, Knives Out looks like a very fun caper kind of thing.
Okay.
Like if Clue was good, is what the vibe I'm getting.
Oh, you think Clue's bad?
I haven't seen Clue, man.
Oh, you're talking about the movie. I was talking about the tabletop game.
Okay, well, like Clue's fun.
All right, well, I like Clue. I prefer Monopoly.
Okay.
Star Wars.
They're all over the place.
Star Wars Monopoly, baby.
I do own Star Wars Monopoly.
Do
Actually.
you really?
Yeah.
What are the little tokens?
I lost them all.
What do you like? You have like a Death Star or something like that?
I don't know. I think the properties.
Yeah, no, like the little
Oh,
you
the
know how you could
figures?
like play with the thimble and stuff.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't know what those are. I can try and find a picture of it that I have.
Feels kind of weird being able to buy the Death Star as a property, I imagine.
Yeah. So in terms of Rian Johnson, like I said, he's still good in the eyes of Lucasfilm.
Okay.
His thing is still on track. He's on very good terms with Kathleen Kennedy.
I'm excited for that one.
Me too. I'm very excited to see him get to do his own thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Sources at the studio are insisting that Kathleen Kennedy's job is safe
Why wouldn't it be?
because of all the turmoil and like some people, I'm not going to like go into these people,
Yeah.
but some people do think that she's the worst thing to happen to Star Wars, that she doesn't know what she's doing.
Well,
This incredibly successful Hollywood producer has no idea what she's doing.
yeah, those people are morons.
And she was handpicked by George Lucas, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was, because she is good at her job.
Yeah.
And it's evident through all of the Star Wars movies that she made. Maybe not Solo, but it still was a box office success. So
For the most part,
like
yeah.
technically, so whatever.
And as far as the discussion around that, I guess, and the reason why Variety felt the need to point it out again is because with the news of Kevin Feige coming on to produce a Star Wars film, Kevin Feige, there was speculation that he was going to take over for Kathleen Kennedy.
Mm-hmm.
From her statement that we talked about when Kevin was attached to work on Star Wars, it seems that she's just bringing in more creative talent so they can approach it in a new perspective, which I think is the right call.
I think this ties into the Bob Iger quote that we talked about earlier too.
Exactly.
They're just taking a different direction on it.
Mhm.
They're learning from the mistakes that they made, and they're not. They're being reactionary, but in a good way.
Yeah, and going against what we thought with the Kevin Feige thing. Again, the article is claiming insiders are saying this, their sources are saying this.
Yeah, I mean,
Kevin Feige is only on for one film, and he does not have any plan to, or like Lucasfilm does not have any plan to give him a promotion within Lucasfilm.
I mean, he's honestly he's busy.
Yeah, he's very
he's
busy.
busy. He's a busy man.
Yeah. So I think I'm happy with most of this news
Same.
because it shows that Disney's pivoting, and as we've talked about with the Star Wars films of the Disney era that aren't episodes so far, with Rogue One and Solo, we're all pretty positive on them.
Yeah.
I have my issues with Rogue One,
Whatever.
but I still think it's a fine movie.
Yeah, I mean, all of the movies that they've put out are fine.
Yeah. So,
Some of them are great.
yeah. So, hearing that Benioff and Weiss are exiting, and hearing that the focus is going in, from what this sounds like now, the Rian Johnson trilogy, that makes me very happy.
Yeah.
Because there was a stretch of time where it seemed like they were announcing a Star Wars project every week. You get a trilogy, you get a trilogy.
Yeah. It
And-
just doesn't work that way.
It does not. So I think it's safe to say that 2021 maybe we get that first Rian Johnson movie, and then 2022 when we're supposed to. We get Avatar 2, and then we go bouncing back and forth on what Disney releases are for the fall, December.
Is Avatar Disney?
Nope, now it is.
Oh wait, why? Because of
The Fox purchase.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
All
This is a
right.
separate thing, and that's it for news this week. But before we take our little break, I want to say this because we're talking about Avatar.
Okay.
I think it's very funny that everybody was happy that Avengers Endgame became the highest grossing of all time.
Yeah.
I was happy. It's a fun thing. It's kind of pointless to celebrate, but it was fun. It was a moment.
Sure, yeah.
I bet $100 leading up to Avatar 2, when they re-release Avatar, to build that hype up, the whole like return to Pandora marketing, it's gonna hit the billion again. It's gonna hit the #1 spot again.
Oh, you think Avatar 2 is going
No,
to?
Avatar 1 is going to, when it gets re-released, make up for the like $300 million that Endgame has over it.
I don't know.
What's that face for, Pat?
Wasn't the whole point of Avatar getting its huge like release? Wasn't that because they had like all this new IMAX technology surrounding the movie?
It was repeat viewings, but if they re-release it in theaters, there's all those fans that really loved it at the time being like, hey, I wonder if this holds up, because I doubt they've watched it at home since then.
Yeah, no, I don't even think
It's
I
a
have.
theater experience. I didn't see it in theaters. I'd love to see it in theaters. So,
It's pretty cool in theaters.
yeah.
Yeah.
Keep that in the back of your head, guys.
I mean, I have to say though, I don't know what I was going to say actually. Let's just move on.
All right, well, that does it for news for the week. Mandalorian's very soon. So, I think next episode,
I remember what I was going to say.
what's up?
Avengers Endgame, didn't they re-release Avengers Endgame like a week after it was out of theaters?
Yes. They did.
That doesn't count.
So, next week we will be dedicating a portion of the first half of this podcast to a Mandalorian series review, because episode 1 comes out Tuesday the 12th. You can check our Twitter at Jedi Knights JC to see a full breakdown of what episodes are being reviewed when. I think it's going to end up shaking out, so you get the review for the previous week's episode the day of a new episode, just based on our
Okay.
recording release schedule. But look forward to that.
That's some cool Mandalorian content right there.
Yeah.
It's like an appetizer.
Yeah, I'm excited. So
So, what about these news segments? Are they staying in?
we can have a discussion about how this is going to shake out. We can play around with some things.
All right, didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, I actually wanted to bring this up, and I was going to say, for listeners of the show, you can find our Twitters on our YouTube page or comment on the YouTube page. Do you want to keep hearing news? Would you like to just hear Mandalorian review for the first half hour, and then the second 40 minutes is the film?
Porque no los dos. We could do both.
Yeah,
Sure.
we could have a little news anchor over here. Just rip it like 3 minutes.
Coming in you live from
Yeah.
Camino. It's rainy.
All right, well, we will see how that shakes out next week, but we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, A New Hope, reviewed, ranked. Where's it going to rank? I don't know.
Find out.
We'll see you in a second.
Laugh it up, fuzzball.
Welcome back. We are now going to be discussing the film that started it all, Star Wars.
1977, maybe.
Wish I was there.
Let's take a time machine all the way back.
Sure. That'd be great.
Yeah, I wish those exist.
Yeah, me too. Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, also known as Star Wars, period.
That's it.
This movie, would you like to talk about this movie? Because I feel like the way we've been discussing films so far is an interesting way to talk about movies in general. Because but with Star
Oh,
Wars,
you mean with like no structure to the conversation whatsoever?
more so that like we're talking about aspects of the movie that work or
Okay.
don't work.
Yeah.
Star Wars is interesting because there's so much nostalgia with A New Hope for me.
Yeah.
That I found myself like in a very weird space when I was watching it, because I was like looking at it with the knowledge of the prequels and like in a linear sense,
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
That was honestly the first time that I've seen this movie in this light. And it's been very interesting for me.
It's really interesting you bring that up because I watched this movie yesterday with Jack, and we were both, because Jack has also been following along with this.
Yeah, shout out.
Yeah, shout out Jack Martin.
J-Mart.
Yeah. So we were kind of talking about this, and we were just thinking about how cohesive everything is, or at least I brought it up. Like, just all the things that they talk about and all the characters and stuff, like, there is some backstory to them now.
At this point, yeah.
Yeah. It's like, oh, that guy sitting at the table, Like Jack pointed this out to me. I didn't even know. He was like some admiral in Rebels.
Oh, that's cool.
Like in that first like scene with Darth Vader and Tarkin and all like the other officers and stuff.
Yeah. I guess before we like dive too deep into that,
Right. Yeah. Just more generally.
This opening crawl has like a weird sound to it, you know?
What do you mean?
It sounds off.
Like the actual.
Like the blah sounds different than every other blah at the beginning of Star Wars.
Well, it might just be because it's old.
Yeah, sure. I just thought they might have just like
Fixed it.
tuned it up a little bit or something for the sequel.
I don't know.
But that's always been interesting to me because it is the first one, it's the oldest one. I was like, maybe they had a bad recording or something. I don't know, but that's
Does it sound kind of lower to you?
Kinda,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's what I'm getting from it as well.
Mhm.
Or well, I got from it.
Yeah. The crawl. We've started with the crawl before.
Yeah.
This is a good crawl.
It's classic. It really is.
Yeah.
It sets it up just good versus evil.
Mm-hmm. Gives context or is fleshed out now having seen Rogue One.
Yeah,
leading
no,
to this movie.
Seriously though,
The
like,
spies.
you always wonder as a kid when you're reading that, like, what happened during
Mm-hmm.
that battle.
And now we know these spies. Cassian Andor, Jenner, so
Yeah.
it's fun.
They have names.
Yeah.
Next up, Rogue One 2. Bothan spies.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Didn't know where you're going with that. I was like, they're dead, but
Lots of them died.
many of them.
Rogue One 2 is a hell of a movie title.
Kicking off this movie though, I forgot how long it takes to get to Luke Skywalker.
Yeah, it's really slow.
It is. Not in a bad way,
No,
but we spent a lot of time with 3PO and R2.
just like wandering around the desert. Yeah.
Yeah, just having their little droid adventure.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Previously on this program, I said that as a child, my favorite character was R2-D2.
Okay.
Now I know why. Because the first, 20 minutes of this movie, it felt like just about him.
Yeah, it's just about R2.
So, I wish he would get his due.
Revolutionary for a movie back in the 70s, though.
Yeah, like all of this is like
Yeah.
incredible for the time.
Yeah, it's just like the scale of it all is just amazing.
The creature design, the like mastercraft of how everything looks in this movie, it all feels real.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it's just junk that they repurposed, but it looks congruous. Like
Right.
there's that scene in the freighter after R2 and 3PO are captured and the Gonk droid's there. And it's just like a weird kind of coziness that kind of really just sets the scene for what the galaxy's like on this planet.
Yeah.
There's just so many things that are disconnected to one another that, like, because nothing happens on Tatooine.
And also, while you're just watching it, you're just like, oh, this feels real.
Yeah.
Like, and it feels like it's existed for hundreds of years.
Yeah,
And
and
I'm just viewing this from the outside.
And that's what I was saying when I said it felt weird, because this was the first Star Wars movie I ever saw.
Yeah, I think it probably was for me as well.
And growing up and knowing that this was the first one, the way they present it all, it's just like, this just exists.
Mhm.
This is how everything is. The Empire's bad. Vader's the big bad guy. That's just how everything works. But again, going through it in a linear sense, through chronological order of everything we've watched so far on the show, really paints it in a different light for me. Specifically with Vader. Because Vader isn't like this big bad guy. He is a bad guy, but like he's not the bad guy. He's just kind of a pawn.
Yeah.
And nobody on that council treats him seriously.
Nope.
Which I always got that vibe from it, but like he choked that guy out. It's like, okay, don't mess with him.
Yeah.
But his entire role in this movie is just kind of like he's an obstacle. He's just there on order from the Emperor.
Yeah. And I mean, it's just interesting to look at Darth Vader through the prism of just like the last few movies that we saw him in. Like, he's more than just this like robot looking guy.
Yeah, it's still kind of a weird disconnect with me as far as like everything, like you said, it does all feel congruous. Like Rogue One, the ending of Rogue One on the ship leading into the beginning of this movie.
It's seamless.
Kinda, but like there's still a small thing in my head that doesn't let it click fully.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it's because of CGI Leia or what.
Really? I don't know.
Or just because I think everything looks cleaner in Rogue One as far as like crispness.
Okay. Yeah.
But like 3PO and R2 walking through the hallway looks like they were just in Rogue One.
Yeah.
which I give Rogue One the props for that.
Yeah.
It's strange seeing Darth Vader in this movie acting the way he acts, and then remembering that's Anakin Skywalker.
I don't get that feeling, and
Okay.
maybe it's because like I just have so much of that residual memory of just like the next two movies, and it's so hard to just get that context out of your head. I
Yeah.
know that we're not talking about those yet, but just like knowing that that's where it all ends up, like
Right.
you could see it,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm when I watched it, it was very much present for me.
Okay.
Because at this point in like the in the real like chronological terms, not of the story but of the release, like Vader's just a vague bad guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I don't know where I was going with that.
Right, but where we know him now, he is a fallen Jedi who fell to the Emperor and has just been wrecking shop since then.
I mean, and Obi-Wan Kenobi says as much
Yeah.
in this movie,
Mm-hmm.
but also I just think it's so amazing how cohesive everything is, because like everything Obi-Wan Kenobi says just fits perfectly with everything we watched.
Yeah, that's very
I don't
impressive
know,
to me.
it's just very cool.
There is probably like a few things that it's like might be reaching a little bit, but like
Yeah,
yes,
there's some
approximately.
stretches here and there, but
It is impressive seeing him talk about the Clone Wars. Alec Guinness's acting there, like you can see the pain of the Mustafar fight, even though it was like 25 years from being actually created.
I know.
That's very impressive. That's one of my favorite little connections to this.
Yeah.
But yeah, Darth Vader. It surprised me how much he felt like he was on the back burner.
Yeah, I think it's just because at the time George Lucas only thought he was going to be making one movie,
Sure,
right?
and I think that's important to have in your head
Yeah.
with this movie, specifically with how it ends. But
Yeah.
Um,
It's so silly.
I know. But yeah, Star Wars I just think is just this very interesting film.
Yeah.
Because like you said, revolutionary for the time. Holds up very well. There are some visual hiccups that I did notice.
Yeah.
I watched it on the Blu-ray. I know you have the...
So I watched it on the despecialized editions.
Gotcha.
Bought those on eBay, so I feel like anybody could probably go get those on eBay. They're very cool.
Mhm.
So I think I don't know if you want me to get into it, but what they do is they took the old negatives from the film,
Mhm.
and they also like put it over the Blu-ray versions and all the versions in between. Basically, they took out the special effects and kind of like layered them all on top of one another, but like used the original negatives like as its guideline, basically.
Yeah, it's an impressive effort. I've seen clips of those.
It's amazing and it looks great.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask you guys a question? Me and my brother were talking about this
What's up?
earlier in the week. So when you look at like the fight between Obi-Wan and Darth Vader in this movie.
Can you put a pin in that? Because I do want to have a discussion about
Okay,
that.
yeah,
when we get
yeah,
there.
yeah, okay.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
put
you.
a pin in it.
Put a pin in it, Pat. Shut up, man.
That's a saying, okay? I would like to dedicate like at least 5 minutes to that
Yeah.
topic, so
Okay,
we can
cool.
get there. But as far as the visuals go, outside of like a couple instances where you could see like the celluloid, I guess, around the TIE fighters, this movie holds up incredibly well.
Yeah, all the miniatures are just cool,
Mm-hmm.
and they work really well.
And with these special editions, I'll say that's where I get a little sour, because like there's that one scene where they're going into Mos Eisley. There's a bunch of things they add in, right? Like I think that entire thing was done in CG. I don't remember them just pulling up to Mos Eisley like that.
So in the despecialized edition, because in the Blu-ray version, there is like this big thing
Yup.
that like just
That's- yup.
completely blocks the screen.
Yeah.
That's the thing that gets me.
Yeah.
Like, because it doesn't look good, but it
No.
takes up the entire frame for like 30 seconds.
So actually, in the despecialized edition, there are 2 droids that also take up the entire frame.
But do they look good?
Well, they're there. Like, so yeah, they look a lot better.
Okay.
Christian, what do you think about Jabba?
Yeah,
As they're
Java
leaving-
too. The addition of Java, because like that scene originally, they shot that scene like Harrison Ford was acting with an actor who was a human playing Jabba the Hutt,
Yeah.
because Jabba was not a slug yet.
Have you seen that?
Yeah.
By the way.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
I have not.
You have. It's worth looking up at some point, but yeah, Jabba looks bad. Like Harrison Ford, it looks like there's some like weird deep fake thing going on with him in that scene.
There is, yeah. Because
really?
Yeah. So there's a point where Han Solo walks
He
around.
steps up.
Yeah, and he steps up, but he doesn't actually step up, and it looks horrible.
bad.
It looks so bad.
Also, retroactively, now this is the first appearance of Boba Fett. He
Very
looks
well.
at the camera.
See, I didn't watch this version, so I
did.
didn't have it ruined for me.
Correct. So,
Just kidding.
but yeah, what do you think, like, technically of, you mentioned the miniatures looking great. As far as everything else goes in this film, you can tell that there is a budgetary constraint with some things, right? Like there's that instance of the first igniting of the lightsaber where like there's like one frame missing,
Yeah.
or it jumps a little bit. When he's training on the Millennium Falcon 2, there's another instance of it. It's less noticeable, but it's still there.
I definitely noticed them.
Yeah, it's a charm to this film,
Yeah.
but
You gotta like put it in the context of 1977 though.
definitely.
So I mean, like nobody at that point in time was like, "What's up with that frame
Yeah.
loss right there?"
Yeah.
People were just watching this movie and were like,
Laser sword.
"Yeah," or just like, "Whoa!" Like
Mm-hmm.
anything. Like that first opening scene was.
It's very impressive for a time, definitely, and I do think
Yeah.
it shows because so much of it does hold up. And my only negatives that I brought up of visuals were the things they added in the 90s.
Yeah. So
So clearly they did a good job.
yeah, it was successful for a reason. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And sort of tracing back a little bit to the influence of the prequels. Again, my big takeaway with the prequels was just being very impressed with the Sidious narrative. Even though it was a lot behind the scenes stuff of like, we're not showing it, but like if
It
you
exists. Yeah.
take a step back, this is all he's doing. Seeing the Death Star, seeing why it exists, the fact that they did choose to blow up Alderaan, basically just because Sidious wanted to wipe out the rest of the remnants of the Republic. It's just like that was the plan for this whole thing. Again, the context of everything else made it more in like dynamic than just bad guy blow up planet.
Yeah, and I mean, the cool thing is that the Darth Sidious plotline from the prequels, it's still happening.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't end with episode 3. I mean, like it reaches its climax, I would say, like in terms of its visibility.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no, I think it's what makes it so cohesive.
Yeah.
Is that the entire time Palpatine has been underneath all of this.
And I think that if we didn't watch it chronologically, when I was watching this movie last night and they were in that boardroom, I would not have taken that away from it.
Yeah.
Because I think for the merit of the prequels, they did a good job sort of laying the groundwork for Palpatine and his influence in episode 4 because he's not in it.
No. And I mean, people like to bash the prequels for politics and stuff like that. The original Star Wars had some politics in it too.
They did, and it's funny because, and again, tying it to the prequels, the only reason I noticed the politics is because we chose to watch the prequels first.
But it still makes sense though.
Yeah.
Like the Galactic Senate was dissolved in this movie.
Mhm.
That's the remnants of the Republic.
Yep.
And we watched 3 movies in which the Galactic Senate was a major player in what happened.
Yeah, and now it's just the senators kind of have their own jurisdiction over like their own planets, right?
Well, no, the Senate still existed.
Right. Well,
And-
I mean, like at the state of
Like after its dissolution.
yes,
Yeah.
like it's
Well,
like
it turns
more
into governorships and stuff.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Which is interesting,
Yeah, yeah.
and in this galaxy, seeing it progress to that point, even though we're kind of reading between the lines to get that narrative out of it,
Right, yeah.
it's still impressive.
Yeah, I mean, and I'd like to clarify that the governorships existed before the Senate was dissolved, but
Mm.
they just gained more power.
Yeah, it's like the laissez-faire. Am I getting history right?
Well, it's like that's
The nobles and stuff, like
Oh.
they're a name that has some
well,
territory.
laissez-faire means like free market, right?
I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I haven't taken a history class in a long time.
The aristocrat.
It's French for something.
Well, it means hands off, doesn't it?
Sure. So yeah, that's probably the wrong way to put it. But like,
Because they say like a laissez-faire market.
sure. But like, if the empire, the imperial reign is still present over the entire galaxy.
Yeah.
But there's subsidiaries of the empire who get a little leeway from the empire to rule their own.
Yeah. Like
Places.
Like Tarkin
Yes.
is a governor of a certain star system
Yeah.
until he takes over the Death Star.
Yeah. So I do think the political plot is interesting for as little as they touch on it in here. I think there's a lot of ramifications that exist because of where we are with that Palpatine plot so far.
Yeah.
5-6 movies in.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a question for both of you.
Yeah.
You just gave a disapproving look, Pat.
No, I found something weird.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's all 6 Star Wars movies just playing at the same time.
That-
It just popped up on YouTube
Okay.
and I clicked it. Sorry, continue.
So I have a question for you guys.
Yeah.
A New Hope is directed by George Lucas. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are directed by George Lucas. Why is A New Hope good? And 1 and 2 aren't good. 3 is all right. Why did this shake out this way? Because I know A New Hope historically was a mess until post. Is that all that matters? Is it the budget? Like, why do you think that A New Hope is as good as it is when 1, 2, and 3 have so many things bogging them down?
Well,
You go first.
so I wanted to actually pose this question to you.
Okay.
So I'm happy that you posed it to all of us so we can talk about it.
Sure.
Jack and I were talking about this yesterday
Mm-hmm.
because George Lucas wrote 4 and he also wrote 1, 2, and 3 as he did direct it, like you just said. And the dialogue still seems a little stilted
Mm-hmm.
for sure, but it's still a better movie than most of the prequels.
Is it because he was younger?
I think it's because he was right, and this is what Jack and I talked about. But I think it's because it was right. He was right out of film school.
Okay.
Like he was just like in his prime,
Sure. Yeah.
like in the zone. Like he had to make a good movie. Like he hadn't really made like a successful movie other than American Graffiti,
Right.
and so like he needed to prove himself, and so he was like Star Wars. Like I'm gonna put all of my effort into it, and it worked out.
Yeah.
Then he probably got lazy with the prequels. Gonna be honest with you. Like,
Yeah.
Because I know like so much of the conversation around the prequels is that nobody was saying no to him, and he could just go off and do whatever he wanted.
Yeah.
There was nobody to put him in check. That's probably part of it too, because I know that's a common thing to bring up when you're talking about the quality dip. But I do think it's worth talking about the budget too, because yes, he did have constraints. Yes, he did things that no other film was doing, but he had to be very creative with that. And I think because of that, the narrative of A New Hope had to be extremely, not surface level, but very basic. It wasn't needlessly complex. It was very bare bones, coming of age, good hero, bad people. And you build this universe on top of it, and you devote so much of what this film is, why it became a phenomenon, to the creativity you take to make it feel real.
Yeah.
And I think that train of thought may have carried on with him far too long, where he realized he could go off with these visuals. People are just going to love these visuals, and then he can get really in the weeds with it.
Well, he's always said that he always wished that he had the technology that he did in the prequels to make the original trilogy.
Mhm.
Like that's the kind of technology that he wanted.
Yes, and I'm glad that the budget and tech was not there, because I
Yeah.
think we have Star Wars the way it exists now because of those budgetary constraints.
Yeah,
That's my stance on it.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's not just budgetary constraints too, but it's just technology.
Mhm.
Like back then, like you said, just wasn't able to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do think your point is also probably part of it, as far as him being very young and fresh out of film school, wanting to prove himself. I think there's definitely a combination of things, and trying to boil down the problems with the prequels to just one answer is almost impossible. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we have a good train of thought as far as why.
I think what you said about A New Hope being very basic in the terms of like good guys, bad guys, fight. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that's what he was trying to go for.
Yeah.
Like he wasn't trying to be, I don't know if you've ever watched Empire of Dreams.
I haven't yet.
So he was never trying to be anything like more than that.
Yeah.
And he was very involved in like the philosophical aspect of like that. And I don't know exactly like what he was studying, but he was like studying philosophy like really hard
Mhm.
and came up with these like archetypes basically.
Yeah. So, Pat, what about you? Do you have any takes on this?
Not really, other than what's been said.
Okay.
I agree with the fact that like he was a young and hungry
Yeah.
filmmaker, as opposed to I feel like the prequels were like, while it did continue the story, like those decisions had to be influenced by like marketing, toy sales, potential movie. Like I feel like there was less of a desire to like create. Well, not I feel like I'm kind of spewing there. But I feel at the same time, I feel like he didn't have to prove himself.
Okay. Yeah, because he's like at that point he's George Lucas, creative Star Wars.
You're talking
Yeah.
like prequels.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I get what you're saying there. So yeah, I didn't think we were gonna land on a solid answer, but I'm happy with the answers we have,
Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to be able to get the full answers.
and I don't think we should.
No, me either.
What else would you like to talk about with this movie? I have some notes again about how simple it is, but I don't think those are negatives.
No.
The movie just kind of ends.
The movie just kind of ends. It ends in a weird way.
It does it in a weird way.
Chewie doesn't get a medal.
Yeah, what's up with that?
That's messed up and racist.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
just George Lucas. I guess he's got
The signs were showing early.
Yeah, he's got
Yeah.
some prejudice against Wookiees or whatever.
Yeah, so
I think the Battle of Yavin. The music in this movie,
oh yeah, John Williams showing up.
chef's kiss.
Yeah.
Like seriously.
There's so many great pieces in this. Like, I do think a lot of it relies on that main theme, because at this point you don't have the Imperial March, you don't have Han's theme necessarily, but you
have
have
the Force theme though.
You do. You have the opening crawl theme, which is a recurring theme, slightly modified for different tracks. You have Leia's theme. You have the Force theme, and at the end,
yeah.
which I love that so much.
You know, and it's funny. Yeah, you gotta watch the Empire Dreams documentary. It's fascinating.
I'm really excited to. It's going to be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
So I know it's on YouTube, but I would like to watch it in a potentially better quality.
It provides a lot of insight.
Mhm.
And apparently, like the first cut of this, like Fox executives watched it and they were like, "This sucks."
Yeah.
Well, not it like before the music was added and after post, but
Oh.
before the music was added, they were like, "This movie is horrible." And then he was like, "But wait for the music." And
Did-
slapped the music on it, and they were like, "Whoa."
Didn't like half the set get destroyed?
That's in
too?
5.
That's in 5. Okay.
Wait,
Yeah.
what? Really?
Yeah, we can dive into that
okay,
with 5,
yeah.
but like there's some like bad stories about Dagobah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Did George Lucas's wife edit this film?
I think she did. Yeah.
And that was like the second cut. That wasn't the original cut when it was a mess, right?
Yeah, she saved it. Essentially.
Yes. So props to her.
Yeah.
I should know her full name.
Pat,
Pat, would you like to look that up?
Yeah, look it
Yeah.
up, Pat. We got to give her some credit here.
Yeah.
This movie did go through extensive recuts.
Yeah.
And stuff.
So maybe reshoots aren't the worst thing in the world when you see those get reported.
Yeah.
Because
I mean,
clearly it's
clearly
saved.
not. Yeah.
it saved A New Hope.
It did.
Her name is Marcia Lucas. And
Fantastic.
I don't think she's his wife anymore.
Well, thank you for saving Star Wars.
Thank you.
As far as the like nostalgia factors, do you want to get into those? Because like we could just go off for a little bit about our favorite moments of this movie because it's just so classic.
The binary sunset.
It's
Luke.
so good. Sure. There's a lot of moments in this. We were talking about it before we started recording. There's a lot of iconic moments in this movie that were recreated in a film called Blue Harvest,
Oh yeah.
where they do the exact same thing but then add a joke to it.
Yeah.
Many of those jokes were in my head when I was watching this movie. It was hard to separate.
Those movies are really good.
We should talk about them
Yeah,
some
yeah.
other time.
We should.
But yeah, the binary sunset's just so good.
That's just like every time it gets you. I always forget where it is in the movie. Like I know kind of where,
Mm-hmm.
but then it just like everything leading up to it is very
Yeah.
hits you.
Everything with Obi-Wan, I love. Again, Obi-Wan's my favorite character with both actors in mind.
Yeah.
Alec Guinness just brings some class, showing up.
Peter Cushing, super scary.
Yeah, very very
Intimidating.
performance. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you guys think like Luke's sadness is glossed over hard in this movie?
I don't know. I
'Cause-
mean, go ahead.
like he goes back home and both of his parents essentially are burned alive. And then he just gets back in the thing, goes to Obi-Wan. He's like, I'm going to go with this old man now. And then he gets, killed.
So I think with the case of Owen and Beru, it's like he wanted to leave very badly anyway. Clearly there was tension between all of them. And yes, it's like it's shocking and saddening to see your only family really defiled in that way.
Yeah.
But that dude was trying to leave.
Yeah, he's trying to get out of there.
So he's like, hey, it happened. I would have died too, so I'm just going to go.
I think he just took the best of it.
Yeah.
Honestly.
That's how I always viewed it.
I mean, he does spend some time
Being upset about it.
looking down.
Yeah.
I also feel like I don't know what I want from this scene. Because at the same time, I'm like, oh, he's kind of glossing over the fact that they got burnt alive. At the same time, I would hate it if there was a scene where he's like, no.
Yeah. Also, Mark Hamill, this was his first gig, essentially. So, not the best actor in the world,
Still pretty good though.
Yeah, he's good for what he has to be.
Yeah.
And I think it only gets better from here.
Oh yeah, he gets really good.
Yeah. Han Solo, legend. That was another one where when it was his introduction, I had Alden Ehrenreich in mind.
No, seriously, yeah. It's the ship that did the Kessel Run.
Yeah, and I was trying so hard in my head to smash those two puzzle pieces together, being like, this happened. I saw this happen.
Did it work?
Almost.
Were you able to?
Almost. No discredit to Alden though, because he did amazing. But
yeah, so in the despecialized version that I watched, Han shoots first.
Yeah, in my mind he still does.
Yeah, he has to.
Yeah, I closed my eyes when I knew Greedo was about to shoot, and I was like, oh, he did it.
Yeah, no, Han did it.
Yeah. So the Death Star run, the trench run,
classic.
it's real good.
Yeah,
A lot more drawn out than I remembered it being.
Kinda.
I think it had a lot more momentum to it.
Okay, I can see that, because once they get off the Death Star, within 5 minutes they're back flying around.
yeah.
It is
a
very
quick
fast.
turnaround, Yeah.
Yeah.
Everything on the Death Star, though, we can unpin your moment, Pat. Obi-Wan versus Darth Vader.
Only a master of evil, Darth.
I love this interaction. Okay.
It's cool. Yeah, I noticed Obi-Wan says something about the last, or Darth Vader's you came back or something like that, which is almost did Darth Vader and Obi-Wan see each other between Mustafar and now?
That'd be cool.
It's possible. Did
not-
Obi-Wan try to right his wrong and then fail or something like that?
There's 19 years?
Yeah, I mean you can't tell me that Obi-Wan didn't try to finish what he started.
Yeah, so we'll see what happens in Obi-Wan coming in 2021.
Yeah,
They saw each other in a coffee shop, and it was really awkward.
So
Obi-Wan was a barista in Mos Eisley.
Steaming up espresso with the lightsaber, just
Pat, if you want to bring up what you were going to bring up, go for it, because I think I know what you're going to say.
Okay.
So say it.
Okay, so me and my brother were talking about, do you think this fight scene, although it's kind of dated, and that might have been more in-depth, what's the choreography for the fight, me and my brother also kind of argued that it shows that they've both aged.
Okay.
Do you guys agree with that in a sense?
My whole standpoint on it is that, again, George Lucas is kind of a more classical filmmaker at this point, going off of very basic techniques. For a very long time, and since this movie came out, he obviously likes Shakespeare. So
yeah,
this encounter, this duel, it's more spoken dialogue than actual choreography. And I think there's, from at least a filmmaking perspective, I appreciate that part of it, because there's these two characters that have this long history together, clearly coming together once again, and the emotional weight of that is way more interesting to me than having a flashy looking fight.
The movie does a good job conveying that too.
Yeah,
you can tell.
You can feel it.
Yeah, there's some background there for sure.
And I do like the slower paced lightsaber fight. I do think you can rationalize it with the fact that both of them have aged significantly. Vader is like 80% machine.
Yeah.
We don't know what that effect has had on his
I
body.
wonder how old he is. Must be in his like 40s, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah.
So, but what about you? What do you think of this whole encounter?
I think it's cool. I just like the dialogue that they have back and forth
Yeah,
with
me
each
too.
other. I just like everything Obi-Wan says.
Yeah. Strike me down and I'll become more powerful than you can
Yeah.
possibly imagine.
Darth Vader's like, like when I left you, I was but the learner. Now I am the master.
Yeah.
Like that's just cool.
I really like this entire fight. It's one of my favorites in the entire saga, if I'm being honest.
Yeah.
For how basic it is, I know that's not a popular opinion, but what I thought you were going to go with was that fan film where they were like, they recreated it and it looks so cool and it blew up online.
Yeah, I saw that.
Props to the people who did that because
Yeah.
it does look impressive. I think that does not belong anywhere near this movie.
No, it really doesn't.
It's yes, impressive feat. I'm not a fan of it.
I mean, you would assume, like, I guess the thought process behind it is that they're extremely talented with the Force.
They're very powerful people.
And if in reality, like, if they were to have that lightsaber battle, it probably would have been a little bit more intricate than that.
Yeah.
Even with their age.
Yeah, because as we'll see in 5 and 6, the lightsaber fights do become more.
Yeah, and it would be if this was not the first Star Wars movie ever
Yeah.
made. There was no precedent for it,
There really wasn't.
and it was just kind of just like fencing.
Yeah.
Almost, but not even.
I like the fight.
I do too. Yeah,
So.
it's classic. Everything about this movie is just classic.
It is, yeah. Like, there's just so many moments that aren't even worth discussing because it's like, of course, that's just a great thing that came out of this movie.
Yeah.
If you had to pick one favorite part that we haven't talked about yet,
One favorite part that we have not talked about.
yes. It could be very small. It could be just a scene. It could be a line of dialogue. Just one thing that really stands out to you, one of your favorite parts of this movie, the nostalgia side of it.
Oh God, can you go first? Do you have one?
I can think of one. I think one of my favorite interactions in this movie, obviously I'm a fan of Han Solo.
Yeah.
I love the cantina introduction. The whole Luke, I don't like you thing, kind of dumb. I don't like that part. But what Obi-Wan's doing that whole time, his interaction with Chewbacca first,
Yeah.
and then they introduce him to Han Solo, I really love that scene, and I like that entire interaction, probably up until Greedo walks up with the gun to him, cut it there. I think that's perfect.
I think the whole like Luke and Chewie and Han like saving Princess Leia
Yeah.
is so like basic.
Mhm.
And it's just like they have like that one objective just to get her out of captivity.
Yeah.
But it goes through so many like weird and like quirky like things that they have to go through,
Mhm.
and like that fight that they have in the jail bay, basically.
Mhm.
The trash compactor.
Yeah.
Like those are all just like weird Star Wars things.
Mhm.
Like I don't know, I just love it. Like
Yeah, like there's very specific parts of this movie, and I think with the others in the trilogy that just stand out as like nothing's really happening.
Yeah.
But like it's just a moment that just feels so good.
like the trash compactor thing is long.
Yeah.
It's a lot longer than I thought it was.
Yeah.
And it has no consequence whatsoever. But it just feels so right.
Yeah. Really does.
Because it's just like a weird Star Wars adventure. They're just stuck in a bad situation.
Yeah.
How are they going to get out?
Pat, what about you? Is there anything stand out that we haven't touched on yet?
The iconic Yee-hoo
Oh,
when
after
the Falcon swoops in during
Yeah.
the trench. Yeah.
See, that fight always like is elusive in my memory too, because there's 2 encounters with a TIE fighter with the Millennium Falcon, right? There's the first one where it jumps to Alderaan,
Mhm.
and then there's the one when they're leaving, and that's when Luke gets in the thing, right?
Well, it's when they jump from Tatooine to Alderaan.
Mm-hmm.
When they arrive at Alderaan,
Mm-hmm. Then they get sucked in.
then they get sucked in with the TIE fighter.
Yes.
And then they leave the Death Star.
And that's when Luke gets in the pilot seat.
That's when Luke gets in the gunner seat.
The gunner seat, yeah.
Yeah.
I always forget that that's there.
Yeah. The TIE fighter, yeah.
Yeah. But again, classic moment.
I'm just thinking of the Family Guy.
And yeah, there's so many great things in this movie that we haven't touched on that we're not going to be able to touch on, but like I think it's a feel-good movie in one of the best senses of that phrase.
Oh, yeah.
There's so many great things.
I mean, without it, we wouldn't have everything that we love.
Exactly. Also, I want to give this another shout out. Han Solo has dice in this movie, okay?
Does he?
He does. In one of those first scenes when they're boarding the Falcon, I think like Chewie knocks him in the shoulder or something. You can see dice hanging.
Oh, wow.
Because whenever everyone was
Look
like,
at that.
"Where are these dice coming from?" It's like, I've seen these in the movie. You're telling me that you've never seen these before?
They've been in the movie the whole time.
Exactly. I thought I was going crazy because so many people are like, "Oh, these dice." It's like, am I going crazy? I swear there's dice in the Falcon's cockpit.
I didn't notice it, but I know that they are in the
Yeah.
original trilogy. Yeah.
So, I get that they made them a bigger deal, probably for like merchandise or something, but like they were there.
Yeah. I don't honestly though, for merchandise, I haven't seen any dice
Me either,
merchandise.
so I don't get what the thing is with
Yeah.
it.
I'd love to get some.
Yeah, they're cool.
Put it in my car.
Yeah, they're nice.
Oh, they're there. I just looked up the photo.
Right,
They're very
thank you,
much
Pat.
there. Yeah,
They're
Thank you.
there, yeah.
they're steel, but they're not like the fluffy dice.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kira.
But you mentioned this again, brings me back to Family Guy. She's like, ha 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 ha, man.
All right. Well, that has kind of. I feel like we've said as much as we can about this movie, unless there's anything else on your mind,
no.
right? Like so many things about this film have already just been said
Yeah.
that it's hard to have a critical discussion about it. I did think going into it with the view of the prequels was very interesting for me.
It puts a different spin on it for sure.
Yeah. And I think at the pace we've been watching these movies, I'm retaining more of the info
Yeah.
instead of if I was just like binging them, which I have done before, but I never grand scheme saw it. So having these discussions in between, I feel like is making me notice more of the subtle connections.
It gives you
through
time
the
to
design.
simmer on it for sure.
Mhm.
And I appreciate that about this format that we have.
Yeah, me too.
What I really appreciate about this format is watching Star Wars is a thing I have to do. So people will be like, "Do you want to get lunch?" And I'll be like, "Oh, I have to do work for this podcast."
Yeah, I know.
It's nice. I like my Sunday nights starting a Star Wars movie and just watching them.
It's an excuse for sure.
Yeah.
Not that you ever really need an excuse.
yeah.
But doesn't hurt.
Before we rank, I will add one last little thing. I feel like this is the Star Wars movie I've seen the most amount of times.
I wouldn't say that that's probably true for me. I don't know what would be. It's
Mhm.
probably a toss up between Empire and Revenge of the Sith
Okay.
for me.
Yeah.
But it's up there.
Yeah, I feel like this is probably the one.
Yeah.
So,
It never gets old. It really doesn't.
it doesn't, no. So,
Every time you watch it, it's like a new movie.
well, it's time to rank.
All right.
Who would like to go first? I can ask you guys today. I'm not going to throw.
Me.
Okay, Pat.
Pat, you can go first.
I feel like that's tradition at this point. So I will go with episode 1 at last, episode 2 next. I'm not going to try to number this
But you're going from least favorite to
least
favorite.
favorite to favorite. Yeah, okay. Episode 2. Then I'm going to go with Rogue One, episode 3, Solo, and then A New Hope.
Mike, do you want to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
All right. So I changed my ranking from the last time.
Mhm.
I moved Solo around.
Okay.
So this is from the bottom up. Attack of the Clones, Solo, Phantom Menace, Rogue One, A New Hope, Revenge of the Sith.
Okay.
You really liked Revenge of the Sith.
I love Revenge of the Sith.
It's a good movie.
Yeah.
And for the longest time, whenever I've had to rank these movies, I've always put Revenge of the Sith above A New Hope. So I am struggling. Right
It's
now.
really hard to rank these because it's like, but they all are awesome. like,
So I'm gonna
Yeah.
run through my ranking. We might call an audible afterwards.
sure.
Number 6 is episode 1. Number 5 is episode 2. Number 4 is Rogue One. Number 3 is Revenge of the Sith. Number 2 is Solo. Number 1 is A New Hope.
Same list.
All right.
Yeah. But I'm considering making a little shift
Okay.
because I really liked Solo. And again, it's new Star Wars for me, so I'm still kind of riding that high.
Yeah.
I think episode 3 is more entertaining than A New Hope, but I think A New Hope is a better film.
Sure. Yeah.
So the potential switch would be episode 3 is number 1, New Hope is number 2, and then Solo is number 3. So come next week, when I have more time to think of it, that might be how it shakes out.
Yeah.
But I am struggling internally with this list at the moment.
I feel pretty comfortable personally putting Revenge of the Sith over A New Hope. I think it really, for me, it comes down just to the nostalgia of it all. I wasn't like a kid with Star Wars, obviously, like the original Star Wars, but I was a kid with Revenge of the Sith, and that was a big moment in my life.
Yeah.
A good friend of mine said that, like, I remember him just going off one day in high school because he was like, oh, that people always knock in the prequels, but they don't realize that's our movies. Like, that's why we like them. It's because it's what we grew up with.
Yeah, it's why I have Phantom Menace over Solo.
Yeah, and Solo I think is fun, but like doesn't have much weight. So that's where the discrepancy is coming up. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah. I'm really excited to see how this is all going to end.
Yeah, because regardless, none of these are in the number one spot come the end of this whole thing. So.
Oh yeah. Well, we'll have that discussion when we get there.
So. Until then, Mike, if people would like to follow you, where can they follow you?
You can follow me on Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
Very nice. Anything you want to shout out?
My Twitter at Mike P. Connors.
All right, Pat, what about you?
You can follow me on Twitter at the P Moron.
Fantastic. If you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram, you can follow me at Chris N. Buckley. If you are listening to the show, you're probably on a podcast service. You probably have a way to review and rank and subscribe to the show, so that would be very much appreciated.
5 stars, baby.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
If you've sat through it this long, you should give it 5 stars.
Yeah.
If I'm being very real with you.
Just do us a solid.
If you're watching this, though, you're on youtube.com/joyclicks, where you can see many other Star Wars pieces of content that are coming up in the near future.
Hey, Christian,
yeah.
do we have a Patreon?
We do.
I cut you off there. I thought I was trying to do a thing. My bad.
Well, yeah, so more Star Wars stuff is coming up in the near future that may or may not be on audio feeds. So look at youtube.com/joyclicks for the rest of it. But following up on Pat, we do have a Patreon. Patreon.com/joyclicks is where you can go to learn more about the people who work on JoyClicks content. Myself, Mike, Pat, Jack, my friend Omar, the rest of the people who work on JoyClicks who have in the past.
Squad.
Yes. And there are several different tiers where you can support JoyClicks for early access to this year podcast. Get it on Wednesday instead of Friday. Maybe you can get those Mandalorian impressions closer to release than having to wait a few extra days.
We were talking a little bit about some Patreon exclusive.
Yes.
Yes.
Which I've been pondering for a while. So
it's up there. It's in the thought bubble.
Yes. The highest tier, though, is $50 for the month. You get our little break, turns into an ad break, and you get anything approved by me, read in the little break between news and podcast. Yeah. But that's going to do it for the show. Thank you for joining me, Mike. Thank you for sticking around, Pat.
Yeah, sorry I goofed up the outro.
It's all good. But next week, Mandalorian Episode 1 and Empire Strikes Back.
Wow.
That's a good week.
That's a stocked episode.
Yeah, so
you're going to subscribe for that one.
Yeah.
Well, 5 stars.
Until then, we're fine. Everything's fine. How are you?
May the Force be with you.
Love you guys.
And I also realized that that's not the quote.
That's fine.
General Kenobi.